Hallo Leute und ein herzliches Willkommen zu einem neuen Projekt, nämlich the 10-minütigen Parsha. And that's all the German for today. Next week, Billy Nader, 2 sentences. The idea is I've started the stopwatch. The idea is to give you a short summary of what happens in the Parsha and perhaps, if time allows, a little idea for inspiration. So, los geht's. Parshas Yisro. Yisro, of course, is the father-in-law of Moshe, and he comes along and does an interesting thing, possibly a dangerous thing. He comes along and he starts giving advice. The minute he arrives, he starts telling Moshe, he says, what are you doing? He sees Moshe standing, or sitting rather, and everybody is standing in line, and they are coming to ask him all of their questions, and he doesn't get a minute for himself. They're standing min haboker ad ha'erev, from morning till evening, and he says, this is impossible. You cannot do this on your own. What you need to do is learn to delegate. There needs to be many judges, dayonim, sore alofim, sore meos, sore chamishim, and sore asoros. He says what you need to do is you should pick out from the people who have yiras shamayim, who don't like money, and people who have emes and integrity, and divide the workload. And as you can see on the graphic here, there are lots of different levels of dayonim. And my question for you is a prize for the first correct answer. How many dayonim were there? There were 600,000 males between the ages of 20 and 60. First person to tell me gets a prize. Let's move on. And Moshe Rabbeinu listens to Yisro, and he takes his advice on board. Let's go on. Then we have 6 very special days in Sivan. Now, everybody knows that in this week's Parsha, we get the Torah is given to us, and people think they know exactly what happened. But actually, Moshe Rabbeinu was very, very busy. Let's go through it. It was no holiday for Moshe Rabbeinu. He spent these 6 days running up and down the mountain. Let's see what happened. What happened was as follows. On Rosh Chodesh Sivan, we arrived in Midbar Sinai, and we camped there. And very famously, Chazal say, the Pasuk says, Vayichan Shom Yisrael. We all encamped there in the singular, Vayichan. We were all excited. It was like one person. We were ready to receive the Torah. On the 2nd day of Sivan, Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem calls to him and says, this is what you shall tell Klal Yisrael. Yaakov. Speak to the women first, get them on board, and the rest will be easy. And he says, I want to give you the Torah. I want you to be my special people. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down on the 2nd of Sivan. He calls everybody together, and he tells them what Hashem is offering them. And they all turned round and they said, whatever Hashem says, na'aseh, we will do, we accept. Now, he doesn't go straight back up to Hashem on the 2nd day, because as the Gemara tells us, whenever Moshe Rabbeinu went up, it was always early in the morning. So he goes up the next day, on the 3rd. He goes up and he says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yes, they want it. They've accepted the Torah. They want it. And Hashem says, okay. I am going to speak to you, Moshe Rabbeinu, in a cloud, and everybody else can listen. But I'm actually going to speak to you and give you the Torah. He comes down, Moshe Rabbeinu comes down on the 3rd day of Sivan and tells them that, and they are not happy. They say, we want to get the Torah ourselves, not just to listen to Hashem giving it to you. Retzoinenu lirois es malkeinu. It is our wish. We wish to see our king. We want to experience being together with him. And so on the 4th day, he goes up and he tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu what they have said, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pleased, and he says, okay, but if you want to accept the Torah, you can't, so to speak, fall out of bed into the Torah. There is preparation that needs doing. To stop obscuring the text. Okay, so he tells them as follows. According to Rashi, and there are different opinions here, but according to Rashi, whatever happened in the end of Parshas Mishpatim now happens here on the fourth day. In other words, he says to them, you have to separate. There's going to have to be a separation. You can't get very close. Moshe Rabbeinu can go, obviously, much further, then a little bit further away, Aharon, then Nadav and Avihu, and then the rest of the Zekanim, and only then the rest of Klal Yisrael. And then they were also told they're going to have to prepare themselves, go to mikveh, become toher, wash their clothes, separate from their spouses. And they were then told the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach and the mitzvahs that they were given in Morah, such as Shabbos, Kibud Avayim, Pora Aduma. And they all responded again and they said, yes, we will do. And Moshe Rabbeinu then wrote it down. He wrote down the whole Chumash from Bereshis up until that point. And that, by the way, is called Sefer Habris, the book of the covenant. Then Friday, Erev Matan Torah. On the fifth day, a lot happened, but we'll keep it short. Moshe Rabbeinu builds a mizbeach on the foot of Har Sinai. He makes 12 matzevos, 12 monuments for the 12 tribes. The Bechayros bring, the firstborns, they bring various korbanos. Moshe Rabbeinu takes half of the blood from the sacrifices from the Zvachim, and he sprinkles it on the Mizbeach, and the other half he sprinkles on the people. He then takes the Sefer Habris, and he reads it to all of them, and then they say the amazing words, Na'aseh v'nishma. This is Friday, this is Erev, the day before the Torah is going to be given, and they say, we will do, and we will listen. The famous statement. He then takes the blood from the karbonos and sprinkles it on them and says, Hinei dam habris, behold, this is the blood of the covenant. And then we get to the day of Matan Torah itself, that awesome day. The date, the 6th of Sivan, the year is 2448, and it is Shabbos Kodesh. The Ramban tells us, Hehorim rokdu che'elim gevois kivnei tzoin. The mountains danced. Says the Ramban that just as we know that in the same Tehillim, when it says that this Hayom Ro'o Vayonos, the sea saw what was happening and it split, and we understand that that is literal. It isn't a metaphor. Therefore, says the Ramban, exactly the same thing. When it says the mountains danced, the mountains danced. Can you imagine what that must have been like? Awesome, and perhaps a little frightening, not so simple. And then we have, of course, and I'm sitting right in the middle of the Aseres HaDibros. I'm going to have to work out how to do this. And then Hashem gives us, of course, the Aseres HaDibros. Let's run through them quickly. We still have 2 minutes and 16 seconds left. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. Don't worship anybody else. Don't take my name in vain. Zocher Esem HaShabbos. Keep the Shabbos, the only mitzvah involving action that makes it into the top 10. And then we have, can't see anything over here. Honor your father and your mother. Don't murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not kidnap. Do not give false testimony against anybody else. And don't be jealous of what somebody else has. And Hashem then splits open the 7 heavens, and we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu with clarity. We know that he is the boss. And from that moment on, we have no doubt who created and who runs the world. Therefore, here we have it in a chart as a summary on what happened on all the different days. And the final idea I want to give you is as follows. Yisro comes along, as we started with, and we said, he comes along and he gives advice. And strangely, Moshe Rabbeinu listens to him and takes his advice. What do we know about Yisro? Where have we heard about him before? He once had an opportunity to give advice, but it was bad advice. To Paroi. Paroi wanted to do his final solution, if I can say that. He wanted to get rid of the Jews. And he calls in wise people. He calls in Yisro, and Yisro won't have anything to do with it. Yisro runs away. And you would think that this is it. He is no longer going to have an opportunity to give advice. And Hashem gives him the opportunity. If you have a skill, if you have a talent, if you have an ability to do something, you will always be given the opportunity. Carpe diem, seize the day, look for the moment, be on the lookout for when you will have an opportunity to use your potential and use it well. Have a great Shabbos.